Hello, everybody. You're listening to the All Metal Mode podcast, and tonight it's going to be me, Gypsy Jewels, and Mr. Dennis Wynne. So it ought to be a fun show. We want you to, if you got any questions, if you got any topic ideas, anything answered. I mean, I was adding up today, and between the three of us, we are knocking on 100 years of experience. Now, I'm a big dumb dummy, so mine probably only counts for a couple years, but Gypsy's really smart and Dennis is really smart, so we'll go more like 75, something like that is probably more accurate, or 70, I don't know, we'll see. But if you got any questions, please ask away. If you got any topic ideas, anything you want to discuss tonight, let us know. Let's jump in and let's do it. If you are tuning in and not in chat, I highly recommend it. It's always fun. We've got some really good people in there. We don't ever have any issues, any problems. It's all good people. Even if you're new to the hobby, they'll help you out. It's a great place to be. When you click on the show and you're listening live, down at the bottom, you've got your little navigation rectangle. It has your pause button and all that. And on there, you might have to click on that. I forget. You'll see like a little cloud, a little chat bubble. Just click on that. You do have to sign up. You can come in through Facebook, though. It's not an ordeal to get into chat. It's super easy. So I'd highly recommend that. Come in and join us and have some fun. Gypsy's in chat. I don't know if Dennis will be jumping in. I'm in. And we already got some people in there. So yeah, jump in with us. And let's see what else. Give me 1 second here. So if you're looking for the best digging tools for metal detecting and gardening, go to PredatorTools.com. They build the highest quality and strongest digging tools made. Their tools are made from the finest American-made steel, built right here in the United States, and each tool is heat-treated and tempered one at a time for maximum strength. They are second to none. There are many to choose from, and each one has a 5-year warranty. Let me tell you, though, they're gonna unless you just run over it with a bulldozer or something, you're going to pass it down to your children someday. They are built to last lifetimes. They're absolutely incredible. It's a small family business. It's George and his wife and his son. Absolutely fantastic people. So if you need digging tools that last and make the job, digging jobs a lot easier, look no farther than PredatorTools.com. Or you can always call Pam, which I recommend. I love Pam. She is a sweetheart. She's such a sweet lady. Tell her I said that. 856-455-3790. Again, that's Pam at 856-455-3790. Best tools made here in America. So yeah, there you go. Please, if you got suggestions and stuff, but there are a few things I do want to discuss, want to get into, and we'll get into some with Gypsy and them here in just a minute, but I want to say, I want to give a big thanks. I don't know if she's listening tonight, to Joanna, and I can't say her last name, Lesnika, or I can't say it. She is behind the scenes of All Metal Mode, and she is fantastic. She helps me so much. She keeps me on the straight and narrow as much as she can. She promotes the magazine very well. She talks me down from doing stupid stuff sometimes. She's absolutely fantastic. She's created the new logos that I love. I think we all love. And I just want to thank her so much for stepping up and doing so much and keeping everything on track. All Metal Mode, she even writes an article now and then, and when she does, they're amazing. Her most recent one was about a ring that ended up over in another country. I'm not even sure. I forget off the top of my head. I did read the article. Just a great article. You ought to go out and read it. I just got an article out there. It's about, just go read it. It'll be at the top. We don't have to get into all that. It's about how some of the women are treated in this hobby. Let's just go with that. And I think it's worth a read, and I hope it gets to the right people, and maybe it'll help some things out. Dirt Digest magazine, I've been working hard at that. It's coming along really good. Look for that at the beginning of May. Don't forget, there's contest for a finds contest every month, and there's a contest going right now for articles. Submit your article, and I think it's a Nocta Macro hand digger. If your article gets chosen as the best one, you'll win that. And definitely, everybody's off of work. There's no reason we're not overran with articles, so get busy. Go sit down. If you need help, when you mail it in, when you email it, put right in there that you would like it proofread. If you're worried about your article being a hot mess, or you're worried about grammar and that kind of stuff, just put in there, please look it over, and I will edit it and make sure it looks good. Send pictures, please, and all that, and we'll get it published. So, put you in for the contest. And we're always looking for articles. We're always looking for finds. If you have found something recently that you want in the magazine, send us a picture. Give us a brief description. Tell us what detector, where, a paragraph or two. I'll cut it out and use what I want. It doesn't have to be written all fancy or anything like that. I always change those. Most people are just like, yeah, I found this here. And we don't give out information like where you found it. You don't have to do that. But, tell us what state you're from. Love to hear what kind of detector, tell us a little bit about the find. And sometimes it's funny, I'll get pictures of really cool find and there's no information. So please spend 5 minutes, send me some information on it so we can get it in the magazine. Where are we going to start? Let's start with air metal detectors, and then I can bring Gypsy and Mr. Dennis in. Air metal detectors, if you go to Air Metal Detectors on Facebook, they just put out a statement. They were having problems, some electrical issues, electronics issues, some mold issues, and they're getting everything squared away. And it sounds like it's going to be coming soon. They've improved some things. They're finalizing work on the new Android and iOS apps. So that'll be coming pretty soon. And I'd like to thank Don Scott for sending me that today. I had not seen it, and he sent that to me today, so thank you so much. Let's get into Garrett's big announcement. Gypsy?
Hey.
There you go.
I think, sorry, I was typing. I'm saying hi to all my friends in chat. Thank you all for joining us tonight. I know that there's a lot of hype out there right now with the new Garrett Apex machine. If you haven't heard, being announced, you can go to the Garrett page, the Garrett, website, and you can register on there for the live feed. So it's the live feed where they will reveal the brand new Apex machine and tell you all about it. I've been getting asked every kind of question under the sun, which I can't reveal any info yet about it until Garrett reveals that new machine on May 15th. So y'all be sure and go to the Garrett website, register for the live feed, and they're going to be giving away a lot of prizes, and they're going to be giving away an Apex. Of course, the Apex won't be released until it's finally released from the manufacturer to be sold in your metal detecting stores and stuff. But I'm actually should be getting mine in the mail soon to test out. Been talking to Mike and Dennis a lot about it. We're all excited, ready to see it and go test it out. And hoping this lockdown will end soon so I can get out and go digging.
Hey,
I live
Gypsy,
in the city, so yeah.
I didn't get a chance to tell you before the show because we were really busy, but Dennis, I don't know if you know this, he is a legend. And him and I were talking a lot about that new Apex yesterday. And he said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to call Garrett, and I'll bet they'll let her share. If I talk to him, they'll let her share all about it on the air tomorrow night. And I said, I bet they won't. But they did. He called right into Garrett, and they said, yeah, as long as the legend's going to be on the show, she can share whatever she wants. So Garrett gave us the okay.
They made me wear a mask to even ask them the question, and they said that if she ever showed it to us, on a trip or something, that the metal detector is going to have a mask, so we won't even know what it looks like then.
And I'll tell you, you guys would think, to our listeners, Gypsy and I are good friends. I consider her a great friend. And we talk quite often. I mean, a couple times a week, we text back and forth. We talk on the phone. We talk about getting together and what research, and talk about Dennis a lot lately, because Dennis is really awesome at research and been telling me about places. And we just talk a lot, and she will not spill the beans on anything. She will not tell me anything. And I'm a little frustrated. I thought we were a little closer than that, Gypsy. I thought we were closer than that. But I get it. She is sworn to secrecy. I get it. It's driving me crazy, but I get it. I do get it.
Well, I have to say they have. Go ahead.
I'm just going to say the Indians had methods to get that information. So just FYI.
Yeah. Now don't give Mike any ideas, because he'll try it.
It would take 5 anthills together to be able to get Mike in the right position when they chew him up a little bit.
Don said we're going to get her in trouble. No, she will not spill the beans. We are not getting her in trouble. Trust me. I have been on the phone, like, come on, Gypsy, just tell me. Just tell me. And she's like, no deal, man, no deal. She's mean. She's mean like that, guys. Torturing.
I like Randy Colon. I apologize, Randy. You said, I assume the Apex is like a metal detecting Roomba. And I believe he's right. I think it digs the signal, and that's going to make it, heads and shoulders above any other machine, because it's going to dig it up for you and put it in your pocket.
I hope, you know what I would like? Living in Texas now, I want a detector that'll scare away the snakes, like in a 50-yard radius. So talk to Garrett about that. The snakes scare, and I'll tell you guys something funny.
Maybe all you need is carry a little rattler with you, and then every now and then just shake it.
I would scare myself.
Gypsy, every time he gets a good signal, that would scare him off. We could get the signal then.
We could. That's a good idea. I shouldn't have. Yeah.
Dennis,
I might have to try that next time.
Dennis doesn't quite know me yet. Let me explain this. Dennis and I went out yesterday, and we pulled up to one site, and the grass it wasn't bad. It was maybe, let's say, 5-6 inches high. And it was an open field, and I know darn good and well that there's a chance. I mean, it was surrounded by woods and thick grass and stuff like that. I know a snake could come out there to sun or whatever. But I'm trying to calm myself down, and I say to Dennis, probably isn't no snakes out here with these woods over. And he said, no, you better be careful. Dennis, when I say that, I know that there's a possibility of a snake, but I'm hoping you'll confirm just to ease my mind a little bit. That's all. And then like a big jerk, he goes on to tell me that he's never really had a problem with a snake, except that time one wrapped itself around his leg. That's not what a guy who's scared of snakes wants to hear, Dennis.
That's a true story, and it was in the middle of the night, and it was a rattlesnake. That was not fun.
I'd have probably shot my leg off is what I would have done. Mm-hmm.
Well, we took care of it. The gentlemen that were with me did the right thing, and they whacked his head off. So that's a good thing. And what's funny, as soon as I lifted my foot off the snake's body, because the head's gone, right? Mm-hmm. It hit me 3 times in the legs. Or in the leg.
Wow.
And I kept remembering, the Hispanic folks that are from old Mexico, when they sun-dry a rattlesnake, but they cut off the 6 inches from the head and 6 inches from the tail, because it's their understanding and belief that that's where the poison was. But that night, I was pretty rattled myself, and I tried to remember in my memory of things to know out in the woods with snakes. Where's that venom at? Because when he popped me 3 times, I thought I was done.
Wow.
But anyway, but I took care of them, ladies and gentlemen. I went to beat the bushes with my metal detector, and I made them run off. We did see one. It, too, had a mask on, if that tells you anything about how severe this issue is with snakes.
Oh, it's scary. Man, it freaks me out to be. It was hard for me to have fun yesterday. Dennis, don't get me wrong, I had fun, but I get so concerned about the snakes. Man, that just, I don't know. It stresses me.
I took him to the primo sites that I'd never been to except for one. And the rest of them they were good sites, weren't they?
Yeah, everything was good.
You agree with that? Yeah. Yeah. And he started worrying about snakes. Gypsy, I know you won't have that problem.
Well, I'm not scared of them. I guess what I'm most worried about is, you've been down to dig and you don't see one, because some of them can be pretty well camouflaged, And
right. That's my concern.
Bite my butt, bite my bum, That's what scares me.
You will find out who your true friends are if that happens.
Well,
but I tell you this.
If that happens while you're out with us, I hope Dennis will take it, because I'll drive you to the hospital, but I am not sucking venom out of your butt. It's not going to happen. No.
They're lining up on the page here. I see them. Anyway, we won't go there. Y'all stop that.
Yeah.
But seriously though. I kind of opened that up. I shouldn't have. But, oh gosh. Seriously, on a different note, today, I was telling Mike earlier that I ordered a snake bite kit to bring along in my backpack for next time. And I also ordered me some snake can't even talk here, snake boots today. So I'm ready for that tall grass.
I would just like to make it perfectly clear that it is now Gypsy's fault for the show going off the rails tonight, not me. I've been a good boy. I'm not getting blamed for this one. But yeah, the snakes scare me. I just, I'm serious. I'd rather come across we come across a bear, throw me a pocket knife, Dennis. I'll protect us. But man, them snakes, you can't see them, and it freaks me out. I don't care if I see one at 6 foot away, I'm okay. Where there's safe distance, I'll give them their room. I don't want to kill them. It's almost stepping on them, though, is what freaks me out. I'm not a fan, but we'll see. We had a good day. We didn't find much. A couple little relics, I guess, but boy, it sure was a fun day, and we definitely did some research, and part of it was we went to a couple really good sites that Dennis hadn't hunted yet to kind of research them, and I started to get out of the truck, and he said, whoa, we aren't hunting here. We were checking it for when Gypsy comes up with that new detector. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
It's called bait, okay? Bait.
Yeah, he's baiting you to get that new Garrett up here.
Yeah. Y'all want first looks on the new Apex as well, don't you? Before anybody else gets
as much as
eyeballs on it.
As much as you've held from me, yeah, I better be the first or one of the very first. The first in this area, anyhow, to get a look. Yeah, for sure. I can't wait. Is there anything you can tell? I mean, I would never ask you, but is there anything? I mean, tell us about the announcement and stuff.
The only thing I can say is, as I mentioned in the video, in case there's some of you that haven't watched the Apex teaser yet, that it is lightweight and it will be, basically rechargeable.
Nice.
Not batteries like the Max and all the other Garrett.
Yeah.
No.
Now, what's this new technology they're talking about?
I'm just in the dark as you there. That was the first I'd heard about that. So I'm really excited to hear what this new machine.
All joking aside, they haven't even really told you anything yet, have they?
No, really, they kept it. They have been very secretive on all this, and really, I don't blame them. I mean, even last time I was at the manufacturer, they showed me around every place, and Von Garrett even took me and was showing me some of the old machines that, like one of the very first machines, all the way up to. They have like this neat little museum that they're working on with the old vintage machines and stuff, and he was showing me those. But the one room, of course, I didn't get to see was where all the brains and stuff is on working on this new machine. So I didn't get to see that at all.
Something that I found out several years back when one of the other manufacturers came out with a machine. I talked to one of their beta testers, and it's really kind of an interesting concept, if you will, that he had been using. I guess I can say the name, but CTX 3030. He had been using that machine in beta form for 3 years. And it's really kind of interesting because we're getting all these machines and they have a faster turnaround now than they did back in those days when that machine first came out.
And the CTX isn't that old. I mean, what are we talking? Less than 10 years, I want to say.
Yeah, I think it's about 8 years old. But my point is that now they can build them and test them in real world type conditions by computer algorithms. And so they shorten that list, and I am personally, I'm really excited to see what happens with this new machine that Garrett's coming out with. I think it's going to be, one of those machines that goes down in history, kind of like the AT Pro. That's kind of the workhorse Garrett's had for a long time, and it's a great machine. And I'm looking forward to the Apex personally.
Right.
I can't wait to see what it is.
Yeah, especially with them claiming it's new technology. Anytime there's new technology on the market, like you said, Dennis, it pretty much changes the whole industry. And we've seen so much happen, in the in the years that Mike was talking about, all of ours added up together. And ever since, if you look back with the very first detectors that were on the market and where technology has come today, I mean, you were talking about, where can you even go?
Gypsy, you were talking about the vintage machines, and my first was a good old BFO back in '74. And there's probably one or two folks been doing it longer than me, but I'm getting to find out that it's less and less common. But it didn't even, it didn't even discriminate. They didn't have them out when I first got started in this, and it has come so far. I often think, gosh, I wish I was young once again, and be able to do it. But it's incredible what they're doing now versus back in those days. Just amazing.
Yeah,
absolutely. I agree. Yeah. Something I wanted to, I'm going to jump topic if that's all right. It's on my mind. Like I was saying earlier, Dennis and I went metal detecting yesterday. And if you guys tuned in a few weeks ago, Dennis and I did, metal detecting, tips for people new to the hobby and stuff. And we talked about etiquette. And we talked about getting permission if you talk to somebody, if you want to get together with somebody, don't ask them to take you to their place and stuff. Well, Dennis has been having me over. That guy's like the research king. He's got so many sites and so many neat places and knows the history. He has me over. He drives. He brings snacks and everything. He's bought me lunch. I about had to fight him yesterday to buy his lunch. But one thing he's doing that I feel like he should be doing is he needs to go out the night before. We're in Texas. The ground's hard, and he needs to water these sites. I feel like when I show up and we go to a site, that the ground should be nice and soft, and I think he should need to put that little extra in, don't you, Gypsy?
There you go. I mean, that would make him the ultimate hunting partner right there.
He brings me snacks and water and everything. I'm kidding.
I don't know. I think the lawnmower and the weed eater would be.
Well, he should. Yeah, he should go out and weed whack and mow that first too, huh? Yep, you're on to something big here.
In my defense, yesterday we talked about that. I did have a 0-turn radius 50-inch mower that would mow an acre pretty quick, and I have been known to do that. But folks, I want to just make it clear. 8 hours before we went out yesterday, I drank about 8 of those bottles of water, and I did water the ground more or less for him in his pathway. And he kept saying, "This isn't right. Something's wrong with this. There's a pattern of water or something." So, anyway, we're going back off topic again. So
I didn't notice it until the path of water went up the side of my leg. That's when I noticed that there was water out there quite a bit. I sure had fun. We had fun, and and I said something earlier, there were some, I want to say at least 2, if not 3 places we went to we didn't hunt, but it was because they were so grown up. Everything's getting so grown up. We've had a lot of rain. It's not been hot enough to make everything wilt. So it was I would say a tough day on detecting, a lot of fun riding around with Dennis and exploring new places. And we did get some detecting in there, don't get me wrong. We had fun.
And the whole time, he's texting me these photos of all these awesome places they're at, and I'm sitting there drooling over these old-looking shacks and these rock formations where old, I don't know, what was that one that you sent me?
It was the staircase. Well, the old bricks. Or, I'm sorry. Well, there was a staircase. Mm-hmm. That was neat.
If she's talking about the steps, that's a church that we talked about that. In fact, that really brings up a good point. Part of why it helps to be old like me is that going around, I've researched so much through the years, and what I shared with Mike yesterday, Gypsy, was that where I took him on the last time, and it took me a few minutes to figure out where it was because it's been so long. But most people that go to that site go to the wrong place because they see an old church and school, but the church has moved from its real location to the current location. And most folks don't get that. But that's one of the great things about researching the right way my case, I happen to have an old topo map, and I was able to locate where the old church was years ago, and I found it. And this was the third time I've ever been to that place. But that's probably the staircase he sent you, is that one, unless it was down in the root cellar that we found on the first location. But it really points up, the value of that.
That's a good point, because it makes me wonder how many times I've been to a location, and that happened to me once as well, is where I found a cemetery and they had told me that the church had burned down or something a long time, and then later talking to a local, I found out, that church was moved. So, I think that happens more often, or, and things happen, they move them, or something burns and they build another one. There's just all kinds of situations. And that's good that you had those old maps to look at and research that. That's where a lot of that comes in handy in those situations.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it does.
He's slick on that. He's a heck of a researcher. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Cut you off.
I was just going to say, and that's so important nowadays. How many times do we hear people say, well, that site's been hit, and it's hunted out? And first off, they might be on the wrong side. But secondly, by doing that kind of research and looking at the old topo maps and looking at different state maps or whatever, and even doing, like we talked about, Mike, some of the sites that I have found by using the tax authority, when you go to those and use the right machine and just take your time, it doesn't matter how many times it's been hit. There's always stuff left. It's just out of our range sometimes. And, speaking of the tax authority, just while I'm thinking about that, one of the things here in Texas that we can do is you can go to any tax authority. For instance, I live in Parker County, and you can use the search term, or the term to go to is parkercad.com, and you can use that in just about every county in the state of Texas, and it'll take you. You can do a search on their site, right? Everybody knows how to do address and owner, but one of the things that most people might not know here is that you can actually do city of or town of or Baptist church or First Methodist or whatever for the county, and it acts like a wild card search. And if you look up city of within that county, it gives you every city property that's owned by any of the entities and tells you where it's located. And that's a heck of a research tool. And it just popped in my mind right now that a lot of people don't know how to do that. And that the same principle would apply to any county if you get to their appraisal district across the U.S. most likely. And you can use a wild card search like that and just do a city of, county of, or town of, and it'll show you what city of, in my Parker County, city of Weatherford, city of Aledo, city of Anetta, and it'll give you all their own properties just by using those terms.
Yeah, that's
not
really
giving away a secret.
Yeah, that's a good one. You were telling me that the other day, and like coming from Ohio, that doesn't work like that I know of. So, I've learned throughout the years talking to different states have different things. Like I know Louisiana is really weird. And they don't, from my understanding, there's not many maps or anything. And it's a little bit different how they go about it and in different places depending on where. But that's some great information, at least for Texas. And there's a lot of people in Texas, so sure it's helpful. Real quick, if anybody's got any topic ideas, you got questions, you want to talk about something in particular, let us know. We'll be more than happy to. If you want to call in and share an experience, a story, ask a question, I can give out the number. Give me 1 second because I don't have it off the top of my head. The call in is 682-459-2977. Again, that is 682-459-2977. I'm surprised that Gypsy is is cheery at all because Dennis, it is funny when her and I first met and started talking. And I'm not even exaggerating this. She's a very happy, optimistic person. And then we would have this call, and I could just tell she was off a little bit. She was down. You could tell, and it would come out in the conversation. She hadn't been out for 2 or 3 days. And I'm serious. I'm not I do exaggerate a lot and joke and stuff, but it's funny to me. And here lately, I'm almost concerned to call her because I know she hasn't been getting out nearly as much as she likes, but I don't know what's going on. But you've sure been awful cheery and happy for not getting out as much as you usually do.
I don't know. I've been cleaning some old finds, and I made made an electrolysis, which I made a video on that. And just trying to stay busy, although I did get out this week. I got out in my neighborhood. I think you called when I was wrapping it up.
Yeah.
In my neighborhood, there's a school about 2 blocks from the house. And my youngest son went there to that elementary. And there's a curb strip, like, right in front and right across the street where a lot of the kids gather. So I got out and did the curb strip there, but it got really hot. I got a little overheated. Anyway, it was nice to get out and dig,
I bet.
And surprisingly, there was so many people in the neighborhood, cars driving by, with the COVID going on. I was really surprised how many, but it was a gorgeous day. A lot of people out walking their dog and just walking by, and people just smiling at me, sitting there digging. But
That's
I dug
fun.
a lot of clad. I did dig some clad and a key, and that was about it. But it helped get a little bit of that, cabin fever, no metal detecting frustration out.
I bet.
But I'm still chomping at the bits to go, of course.
Dennis has invited her. Well, what have we been? She went with us 3 times ago. We've been out twice since then, correct? I think.
Yep.
Yeah,
And,
that was your second time.
Yeah, and I'll tell you something funny. Now, I've never been around people who do drugs, but we've all heard the story about the crackheads, and Gypsy, when she's invited, but she doesn't want to, it's a good haul for her to come up and be around people and with the COVID until everything settles down with the COVID. But so Dennis and I have got together twice, and she reminds me of a crackhead, because I'll be getting texts. What have you found? Where you at? What kind of site you at? You got any pictures? Why haven't I seen any pictures yet, man? What have you found? Yeah, kind of.
I think everybody knows I'm beyond addicted to metal detecting.
If I don't send her pictures fast enough, why haven't I seen any pictures? I asked you 5 minutes ago. Why haven't I got any pictures yet? What have you found, man? Come on.
Now he sends me this photo of this rock, this huge rock, and says, "There's this signal under this huge rock," and I'm like, "Are you going to get it? Are you going to dig it?" Because here I'm thinking, "Oh, it's going to be this cache,
Oh, that's a good.
Gypsy.
Yeah.
Gypsy, you have no idea what a fiasco that kind of was. That rock. I'm sitting there and I'm just, I'm thinking it's a well casing head or something, and I'm about, and what's amazing is it gave a 95 on my desk, and that's a good signal on that machine. And I'm like, oh man, do I want it? Because I figured out this rock. It's 2 feet in diameter, about 6 inches thick, thereabouts, big rock. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, I don't know if I want to dig this or not. And Mike, I didn't know he was getting prompted by you, and you called that, by the way. And he's sitting there, oh man, that might be a cache under there, dude. You need to dig that thing, man. And I'm like, oh hell no, I don't want to dig that thing. Yeah, you better. And he ended up, it was like, he's talking about the crackhead, and I'm sitting there, oh hell, pass that funny cigarette. Oh, that was years ago. Never mind. And we finally get to the point, and we start leveraging that big rock up, and we ended up tying onto it with a strap, and I pulled it out with my truck, and it wasn't anything, folks, except a cowbell. Now it's pretty bad when a cowbell is the prize of the day, pretty well.
Yeah,
but that one happened to be.
Okay,
and Gypsy, you inspired me because I've been watching your great videos on all this off time, and I thought of you, and I thought, I may just use electrolysis on that cowbell, and somewhere I've got stuff to do it.
Oh, that's awesome.
And if I need any alligator clamps, all I got to do is call you, because I saw that.
Yeah, now I've got a whole box.
Yeah.
That's probably about the only way you can buy them anymore, I suspect. Unless you go to like a specialty place, is that the only way you could buy them?
You could. Well, here's the thing. When I went to order them, you could order 2, and it was like $5.99 for a positive and negative one. I was like, or I could order this whole thing of 50 of them for not much more. So I was like,
did you say 50?
Well, it makes more sense.
Did you say 50?
Yeah, it's 50 of those claims.
Oh, I love you. That's so funny. That is funny. I want to back up, and I want to tell that story from my perspective real quick. First off, I wasn't getting text. Text weren't coming in where we were at. Where you? But okay, so I want our listeners to imagine there's this old house site. It's fallen in. There's holes in the roof. The front door's off of it. I don't know the time period, but it almost puts you in and put me in mind. And I don't think it was that old, like an old, what you would expect out on the plains. A small, just after log cabin, little front porch they'd sit on. And I mean, this place looks neat. Behind it is an old stone cellar. And it's abandoned. It's been abandoned for many years. And out front, there's this big flat rock that you can barely see because the dirt's gone over it. There's grass growing over part of it. I mean, you can see a good chunk of it, but not nearly as much as there was. And Dennis walks over there and he goes, oh, I got a good signal. And his detector's just going, whoop, 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 whoop. I mean, just all day long. And I couldn't see passing it up. I just couldn't. And what I hate the worst, and Dennis agrees, we're joking back and forth. Him and I agreed neither one of us would have slept that night if we would have gone home and not dug that. But it did turn into a fiasco. The sun's beating down on us. We're digging this thing out and then prying it up and digging out far enough to get the strap under it. And it was just that cowbell. But another thing, it was just a cowbell, but we got to sleep last night. We weren't up all night wondering what the heck was under that big stone. And it was the best find of the day. So there you go. I think it's a neat that's an old cowbell, I would assume. And I think it's
appropriate.
Neat. Yeah, I think it's a neat cowbell.
Well, now, but the most important thing, when that rock was, rock probably weighed about 120 pounds or so. Not bad, but bad enough. And when I pried the rock up, Mike says, I hope there's not any snakes under that tree.
Yeah.
And I said, and I thought, well, the flat snakes in Texas are not out this time of year. They travel up north to the snow. They go to the snow ladders up in Alaska.
You know that they can make a hole and come in at it and what better than under a big rock where they can, flat snake. See how he treats me?
I think that cowbell was a snake alarm that had been used in the old days.
Maybe.
And it tripped that rock to fall on the snake. That'd be my guess.
See? You don't know. It could have been snakes under there. You don't know. I've seen snakes come out of places that you wouldn't suspect. So I mean, the grass was kind of tall around there. There could have been a tiny little hole, and they could have had a little. We could have pulled that up, and there could have been 50 rattlesnakes attached to my face in less than a second. You don't know. You just don't know.
Well, last year, I think I told you about it, Mike, and it's in one of my videos. I was along the river, and there's this coral snake, and I'm sitting there, trying not to get too close, and I see it heading towards this rock, and I see a hole kind of on the edge of underneath the rock, and I'm thinking, I'm sitting there videoing the snake going under there, and I'm thinking, he's going to head on right on, he's scared of me, going to head right on into that little hole there under that rock. And I'm sitting there talking and videoing, and I've zoomed in, and I kind of get a little closer because I'm thinking, he's going under that rock. And next thing I know, he's headed right towards me. And I'm like, okay, bye. Turn the camera off and go.
That is scary. Yeah, I don't like to get that close to him. I didn't tell you, Dennis, but I am about 99% sure when we were on that gravel road with the two bridges, when we were coming out at the last bridge, I looked down, and I'm about 99% sure I seen a big black snake up on the concrete sunning.
Yeah, that would have been a king snake, and they're not going to bother you. They get about 6 feet long, though.
He was big.
Wow.
Yeah.
They eat rattlesnakes.
Do they? Yeah.
Yes, they do.
Huh.
They are your friend.
So they're the king.
Huh.
It's good. See, Mike, you need to learn all the snakes. Start taking a little test and studying those snakes so you know the poisonous and the non-poisonous. So that way, if you have any encounter, you go, that one's okay.
Yeah, see, I keep telling people this because we do talk about snakes quite a bit. People are like, you don't want to kill the snakes, and is there good? I know, I don't want to kill them, and I don't kill snakes, but they just freak me out, and I don't even want to kill a rattler. A copperhead. They all have their place in our chain. I'm fine with them. I just don't want to step on them. I don't want to get close enough that I end up peeing myself or running away screaming like a schoolgirl. Those kinds of things. And
that's the kind of thing I need to get on video, though. That's
yeah. You want to see a big bearded, burly, grown man screaming and running like a schoolgirl, find a snake. Yeah, I'm telling you, run into a bear, throw me a pocket knife. I'll fend him off till we can get to the vehicle. I'll be like, I'm fine. I'll do it. You can see a bear.
I'm wondering if my son still has that rubber snake in there.
Gypsy, I'm just warning you. Things can get ugly real quick. Things can get ugly real quick.
I won't be friends with Mike much longer.
Nope. I will get you. I will find your fear. And I promise I'll get you back.
Okay.
Yep. That freaks me out. See how she does me? You guys see how?
If we have a rattlesnake encounter, I'll kill the snake if you'll eat it. I'll skin him and everything if you'll eat it.
I don't even want to.
You do that?
No. You talking to me?
Yeah.
No.
Gypsy, have you ever eaten rattlesnake?
They used to have these rattlesnake roundups when I lived in West Texas in McCamey. And my parents took me to this rattlesnake roundup. And everybody was eating this rattlesnake. And it was this fried rattlesnake. And everybody's just over there, it looks so good. And it smelled good. And I tried to get my parents to buy me some so I could taste it, and they wouldn't do it. That was just wrong because I wanted to try it. Now, here's the thing.
It's good.
I heard it's, they all say it's like chicken that's just a little chewy. And I would try snake, definitely.
We got a deal.
I'm kind of, all right. It would make a good video, too.
I don't
we
even
can
want to
do
be in the same room as you two eating snake. It just freaks me out.
They, the snake won't care.
I don't know. I'm trying to
But
get
I don't
over
wanna-
my fear. I really am.
Unless it has to be a poisonous, though. You know what I mean?
Well,
We'd have to kill a
yeah.
poisonous because I don't like.
Oh, I'm there. I'm not going to bother snakes. I let rattlesnakes go sometimes. It depends if I'm hungry, but they are good. They really are. So we'll just, if we're out and we see one, I'll take care of it, and then we'll cook right there on the spot. We'll smoke it or barbecue or whatever. All right, next.
Sounds good. I'm willing to try it.
There you go.
Yeah,
Come
I'll
on,
pass.
Mike. You
I'll
got a
pass.
man up here.
No, I'll eat
tell you,
rat.
fish.
I'll rat. I don't know what else. I want to try wild hog. I want to go hog hunting with you. That excites me so much, and I hope this summer we can do that. Cause
you know, when we drove up that last time we were out, and we saw all those wild pigs out in this field, and there was some cute. I have to say, there were some cute little baby pigs. And
yeah.
the wild hogs that I've always seen were just the solid black, but I noticed there was a mix there, like some spotted ones and all kinds. They were so cute.
They were cute, and I'm guessing they bred with domesticated pigs, right? Is that the answer for that?
No.
No.
It does not take a domesticated pig very long to turn feral. But those pigs, they have up to 4 litters a year of up to about 11 piglets, and breeding with different hogs and stuff. They come out lots of different colors, mainly browns and whites and creams and blacks, but they're different colors. So, now that place where we went, that's what you're talking about, Gypsy, and it's a ranch, right?
Yeah, when we drove right into the...
Okay.
Yeah, and we drove into the ranch, and there was this whole herd over there, and they were just out there just playing, and they didn't run for
and
the
that was actually... That was a small, they're called sounders when they're in family groups like that, but that was actually fairly small. I've seen them up 20 or 30 on that ranch. Now, there's 4,000 acres on that ranch, and some of the other places.
Wow.
There are also 5 other, there's 4 other home sites on there that we need to go to one of these days too.
Ooh.
But look, I've got y'all on the oldest log cabin area. But what I was going to say is, the second time I was on that property, there was a pig that had rooted up in the ground, and he rooted up, I believe it's 1875 quarter that he rooted up under the ground, standing on the surface in the middle of where he had been rooting around. I'm like, man, I don't even need a metal detector, but he chewed on the coin, and it marred the coin.
He chewed on it? Oh, man.
A lot of the Civil War bullets, that people, I had one for years that I just was convinced was that someone bit the bullet, but it was pigs. They look a lot like acorns and stuff. But anyway, in this case, that pig uncovered that quarter.
That's pretty cool. My cousin's property that I hunt in East Texas has a lot of feral pigs, and I always hunt. There's an old homestead on the property, and every time that the pigs go out there and have a field day, I go up, I detect that same area where they, rooted up the dirt and stuff.
Whose place is this?
This is my cousin's property. It's like 200 acres.
Does your cousin want to get rid of any of those pigs?
Well, he's actually my uncle. Went out there and trapped or whatever. A lot of them.
Okay.
So.
Dang it. I need to hunt.
But you never know.
That's on my bucket list, is to hog hunt here in Texas.
Well, I tell you what, if you know, we go back to visit Keys, you know, it's only about 30 miles from Keys. I'm sure my cousin will let us.
Oh, that'd be nice. That would be. I want to, and Dennis is working on some stuff with people he knows, and man, that's just. I know this isn't metal detecting, but man, I want to hog hunt so bad. It's on my bucket list. It's been on my bucket list for a number of years, and you know, it's not really my thing to kill anymore. I grew up hunting and stuff, and you know, watching the deer play in the woods. I don't know. You get older. I got older, and I'm not. But hogs are so destructive, and you know, I don't mind that. You know, just like coyotes are really. I know somebody in Ohio that coyote hunts, and I mean they get pets and everything else, and you know, hogs are so destructive. But anyhow, maybe we ought to get back on metal detecting here.
I've tried to get my bobcat. I've tried to get my bobcat to point out coins and stuff, and she's not as trainable, so I can tell you that won't work with metal detecting.
His bobcat's adorable.
Topic.
His bobcat's adorable, Gypsy.
Yeah, you'll meet her one of these days.
Dennis has a bobcat for a pet. Mm-hmm.
That's how we roll in Texas, brother.
And she hissed at me. She wasn't aggressive though. She just hissed to let me know she wasn't interested, and I understand that. Beautiful, beautiful creature. Yeah.
Yeah. I dated a guy back in the day when I lived in West Texas. There was it was the McCamey Mountains and a lot of bobcats up there. And I had a boyfriend that had, I don't know if it was abandoned or what, he found a little baby bobcat and raised it. And
oh, no kidding.
Yeah. Yeah.
I thought bobcats were bigger. She's not much bigger than a house cat. Not like I thought.
Yeah, they're a little bigger and a little thicker, but they're not as big as, you know.
She's 38 pounds and the size of a Brittany Spaniel dog. She's bigger than you think she is.
See, there you go.
All right.
You were thinking
back
more
on
like
topic,
panther
guys.
size.
No.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm chatting away, and you guys are waiting on me. So what else?
Yeah, I was reading.
Yeah, we're just all
chat. The chat too. Sorry.
People tune in tomorrow. Like, why'd it get so quiet? Another thing I wanted.
We kind of got off on the hunting instead of the checking. Sorry.
Yeah, no, my fault. Completely my fault. Something else I wanted to say. Last week's show with Dorian talking about Jesse James went over really big. And we talked about doing it this week, and I think everybody's excited. Dorian luckily isn't sick again. He just had he's got a lot going on, and he said, make sure it was okay to do next week. So we'll be back next week to do that. And for those that are, wondering what in the world happened, that's what happened. But we'll be back next week, and he'll give him more time to study up and look through his notes and get a game plan for the show going. Did you tune into that at all, Gypsy?
I didn't get a chance to, but I mean, he is so knowledgeable. I know from past things he has talked about that, and I've listened to him on some of that, and his knowledge is just vast. It blows my mind.
Yeah,
and Gypsy, you're right. I've known him, since the 70s, and when he was working for Garrett, and even back then, he was constantly researching. Of course, he had the ability to go lots of places we dream about, but he was very knowledgeable even back then. And I've never, he dwarfs what I'm capable of. And I've got a lot of info out there, but Dorian is really well versed, and especially when it comes to the Jesse James sort of stories tied up with the Knights of the Golden Circle and the Knights Templar and things of that nature. He's really well versed in it, and he's stayed after it. And he's also he's an accomplished treasure hunter as well. I don't know if y'all have ever talked about that on this, but he's found several caches. I found 3 that I can talk about, 2 that I can't talk about. But Dorian is he's chasing really big treasures, and that's a cool aspect of this hobby.
Yeah, it is.
See, we have you here, and you're a legend too, Dennis. So.
Oh yeah.
We need to learn from you just what you were saying earlier about your research. Some of that stuff you were just talking about, I thought was fascinating. So we can always talk about research.
I gotta say that I'm shocked that you shared that with us. I got a funny story that I want to share that goes along with what you just said. And I knew the answer because I know how these guys that chase these caches were, but I don't know if you remember back, and you didn't know me, but you were telling me all about all the equipment you've got and stuff, and that you like cache hunting. And I said, "Oh, you ever found one?" No, I've never found one. Found one little one, and and I told Gypsy later. Gypsy and I had a conversation, and I told her that, and I said, "Now darn good and well he's found a cache to have all that stuff to hunt caches." I said, "He ain't fooling me," but I also didn't expect him to tell me. Mm-hmm.
Well, Mike and I, we discussed why I quit talking about things like that years ago, and by and large, I'm to a point now. I'm a hell of a lot better shot. And I'm not worried about anybody messing with me like I was back then. But what's amazing, and you're right, if you're going to chase those things, you've got to have the equipment. And for the folks that are on here, I've got a ground penetrating radar, and I've got a commercial grade drone with a high resolution thermal camera, and I've got a hyperspectral camera as well. And I'm fixing to acquire a unit that I can put a georeferencing differential magnetometer on. That's fancy speak, but if you can imagine on the field at a Civil War battleground, that thing will actually see, such as a rifle on the field, flying 1 meter above the ground. It'll see it down to about 2.5 feet for a rifle barrel, and you can walk up and dig it up. That's science fiction stuff almost, but it can happen. You just have to have a larger. My drone is an Inspire 1 by DJI, and you've got to have a bigger drone than what I've got to carry the weight load. It's about right at 4 kilograms for that particular tool. But if you're going to chase this stuff, it takes a lot of research, and you've got to have the right tools to be able to find it. And Mike, we've talked about you missed it by an inch. You missed it by a mile. Mm-hmm. But it's a fun thing. You just have to be careful what you chase. And folks out there, I'll tell you right now, and we've touched on this before, the smaller caches are out there. Anywhere that people have been historically, if they died suddenly back in the Western days around where we live, if they died suddenly, they probably had a small cache of money that they had accumulated for hard times. And if the man died, typically they would not share with their family to keep them from being tortured. And if they died suddenly, that's lost to history unless we go in and find it under a huge rock, under a cowbell. So,
yeah.
But, anyway.
Yeah.
Hey, Dennis, I got a question. Okay. I'm sorry. It seems like a lot of you guys that have been in the hobby 35, 45, 50 years, a lot of you are a lot more cache hunters and have more faith in finding caches and have been searching for caches for a long time. I feel like us guys that have been in it a lot are us in it for much shorter time. I don't know anybody that's been in this hobby 5, 10, 15 years that is a cache hunter or goes and hunts caches. Why do you think that's changed over time? I mean, do you see that, or do you talk to younger guys, younger people in the hobby or not been that are cache hunters? I don't hear about it, but I hear, Dorian telling stories about all these cache hunters he ran into. I've talked to, there's a couple older guys been detecting as long as you guys I talked to in Ohio that, they hunted caches. Why do you think that's gone away so much?
Well, there is a finite number of caches, and most people, when they think in terms of hunting buried caches, they tend to think of larger caches that are out there, and I think through time, the industry as a whole, they don't really push that. The goldeneye, I know you've got one, Gypsy, and that's a very limited use machine, and they don't sell a great deal of those. They're used specifically for looking for caches, but most people have been advertised and marketed to for finding the diamond rings on the beach and finding, the coins, the silver coins. And I just don't think it's as common. When this hobby, when I got in 74 and back into the 60s, when it just got started, there was still a lot of large caches to be found. The problem I personally have with it is, and I've got hundreds of tales, but the problem is that if some old man like me found it, you're not going to hear about it. Mm-hmm. And then you got people looking for it, and they repeatedly meet with failure. But I don't think it's really advertised as much now. The stories aren't about the caches or anything. That's why my statement, Mike, I disclosed to you about all those home sites where in my area was the Wild West that so many people hear about. And you now have that information I shared with you about all the folks that died suddenly from Indian attacks. And those folks, I'll promise you, if we go to their properties, we're going to find a cache or two. It's just the nature of the beast. And you can, why gold? Yes, I do. I see your question there. There's just a lot of information out there, but it takes knowledge of how to get there, what you need to find it. And Dorian, it's really a great example that what he did on this last cache that he found, that's fairly typical cache for a good cache nowadays. And he thought outside the box. And most people don't understand really how to do that, in my opinion. And I think that that probably is one of the skill sets that you have to learn through repeated exposure to that type of situation. But literally, everybody that's ever been on the property with a metal detector looking for a cache, they look in all the obvious places most of the time.
Right.
And if you're going to hide it, you've got to get in the mindset of that person that buried it. And that's one of the things I commented to Dorian, and I was right. He put himself in that mindset, and he found that first cache, and it couldn't even been detected with a modern detector. Maybe toolbox might have, but that would be it.
Yeah.
Or my ground radar would have. But you really have to think about it. Go ahead.
You do. I mean, that's a big part of, cache hunting. I think that a lot of people like, but I think you made the best point there. Our detectors, our marketing has changed as well as what's on the market too, as it was from the 70s and stuff. Because when I first got in, over 21 years ago, I can remember watching a video tape that Charles Garrett had out where he finds a saddlebag of gold bars, in like Utah or something like that. You know what I mean?
And they're out there. Yeah.
And they are. And the thing is like the one time that I got to meet Charles Garrett at a treasure show, that was what his whole talk was about. And they had this old, like lambskin map to this part of a Spanish treasure that they were searching for. And they wouldn't, of course, say whether they found it or had found it already or whatever. But he was showing part of this and how it was even, they had to translate it, etc. And his whole talk was on how caches can be found. And I think a lot of it is the detectors aren't marketed. Like you said, the 2-box machines and all that, they're only one that Garrett still has on the market, but it's basically a lot older technology. And I think White may have one now, and Fisher, and that's about the only ones I know of the 2-box machines anymore.
Something that I've over the, I think if you're in metal detecting, even for a short time, you hear about caches and different things. And I want to tell you where I'm kind of at with this. It for many years, I thought, I don't have the time. I don't have the patience. I don't have the skill set. And then I've been talking to Dorian now for a couple years. I meet Dennis, and we, before even that, I'm getting to the point, I've gotten to the point where it's not so much about going out and finding stuff. I've always been interested in history, and it's getting a lot more important to me to find historical stuff, find old stuff. And I would rather go out 5 or 6 times and not find anything, looking for a site that predates the maps, or really, it's more of a legend, an example.
Legend and
a good example is an early campsite from, we're talking like 1780s in Ohio. And it definitely happened, but it's not known where they camped for a couple weeks. And I would rather go chase something like that and come up empty-handed several occasions before I find it, or maybe don't find it. I'd rather go chasing those than going out and finding a Mercury dime. Well, with that said, cache hunting is looking more and more appealing to me, and it's still, I've got Randy, I've got the baby, do I have time for this and stuff? And really, it was talking to Dennis recently, and I was going to bring that up with no detail, but Dennis kind of made a light bulb go off in my head. With very little research, we could be on several sites, and it's only common sense if you think about it, that there should be a cache at one of those sites. There's probably multiple caches, that he's not even aware of, that hasn't even been researched yet, because of what it was. And something that made me think about this, Dennis, whether I'm metal detecting a house that's still standing, or one that's gone, or a site that's gone, or whatever, I feel like for a lot of years I've kind of had a knack for stepping back and looking at the lay of the land, looking at where the road is, wondering if the road still came in that way. Where, I can step back in time and realize they didn't have air conditioning, they didn't have electric, they didn't have washer and dryers. Where were they outside entertaining themselves? Where did they have the clothesline? Where, I'm pretty good at stepping back in time and looking at those things, and I would suspect that would play pretty decent into cache hunting. And it's really been on my mind a lot lately, and I'd really like to do some of that. Yeah,
Well,
because of you,
Mike,
Dennis. I appreciate where you've.
well, I've told you, and we're going to hunt some caches. That's why I gave you the names of those people that have been killed in my area, because there are caches there. If I were to say anything, I think probably the most untapped market, if you will, or untapped resource and actual caches would be if somebody that speaks Spanish. I would absolutely love to go into Mexico, into the interior, and hunt down there, and even along the border. We have towns on the border of Texas and Mexico that date back to the 1700s, and that's way back. And those people were in the same boat we were, and there's gold mines in Mexico. And I'll tell you one quick little funny side story. I had a gentleman about a year and a half ago that asked me to go into interior Mexico because his uncle was one of the treasurers for Pancho Villa back in the early 1900s. And his uncle, or it wasn't his uncle, it was his granddad, but his uncle had found one chest, a small chest, full of gold and silver coins, and he bought the Golden Eye 2-box machine, Gypsy, and it's funny. He wanted me to go down there, and I said, I won't go into Mexico at this point, but I'll help you up here. Well, he went down there, and right now he will not talk to me at all. I've tried to communicate with him just to see how it went, and one of two things occurred. He found it, and he's keeping his mouth shut, or he may very well have been killed down there, and I just hadn't heard it. And that's a wild and woolly place. But my point is that there are a lot of Hispanic cultural people here in Texas, especially, and they have a lot of stories, and they do not have the sophistication, if you will, to have knowledge of hunting down there in Mexico, in the interior region at least. And I'm not demeaning them. I want that understood. But they don't have the advertisements, or they have a gypsy that's on YouTube showing them, hey, do this to this machine or whatever. And well, it's a true aspect. And they still have treasures down there. And so if I were starting,
it's untold
I would
how many treasures
are
over there. Yeah, and just think if we had the access, it wasn't so dangerous. Because I've heard some scary stories about detectorists from the U.S. trying to go over there and where they would get like intel. And even back when I sold detectors many moons ago, when I used to set up at the trade days, and I'd set up at a booth, I would have many Hispanic people come up to me that, had a visa or whatever, and they worked over here, and then when they would bring, stuff over to their family, I had countless people, wanting Hispanic people that would sit there and tell me these gold stories of the gold over there, but how hard it was, and how hard it was to even just bring a metal detector over there. They would want to buy one, but then, getting it over there, and that's been years and years ago. It's changed so much now. Boy, yeah, the government probably let you find it, but they're going to shoot you right after. They're going to take it.
Or the drug cartels or whatever. But, let's jump. I feel like we got a little bit off track. I just want to say, but you've made me feel like, and Dorian, there are still a lot of caches to be found here in the United States. Just like what you were talking about earlier in the area of Texas, even if some of them have been searched for and maybe found, there's probably many more related to that exact incident that you were talking about. And I think what has changed me is when I thought of caches more, I thought of these big treasure stories that all these people had gone after. And I would almost bet that the ones you've shared with me, nobody has ever gone after. Nobody's done the research. And maybe they have, but there's still, I would be shocked if there aren't caches from that. And there's not more, you just made me realize that there's probably many around us. Yeah, they're not huge treasure stories, but they're caches that are worth, and it's not even about the money to me. I mean, I know that sounds stupid, but it's more about to find something that somebody buried and didn't come back to because they were killed by Indians. Oh my God, that would just, it's more the historical aspect of it that really excites me.
Well, and for me, it's the gold, No, you're right. I agree. And the truth is that and I'm just kind of guesstimating, if you will, but I'd say there's literally at least 1,000 times more small caches out there than there are the medium and big ones. Because back in the Western days, colonial days, whatever aspect you want to look at it, they didn't have the banks that we do now over in this country, and especially in Texas.
And they didn't trust them. Even when they didn't trust them back then like we do now. But go ahead, I'm sorry.
And well, it's just they're there, and it's just a matter of figuring out how to find out where they are or where the person was. And you and I have talked about my methodology here in Texas of finding the plat maps, and then I go, and this is actually nationwide, the newspaper archives, great place to find treasure leads if you know how to search it. And it just takes the one clue, that nobody else has found to make a revelation as to where it's going to be even. And Mike, I don't know, Gypsy, if you're even aware of that, but I can say this about the big one that I'm looking for right now. People have been misdirected by history as to where it was or where it is. And I'm absolutely convinced it's one of the two places that I've shared with you about, to what extent I have, and I'm constrained even then. But that's the type of thing that happens with a lot of caches that are hidden away because misinformation gets out there, and it's just not accurate. And so you just got to ferret out the right information from the right sources.
I'd like to share that with Gypsy, of course, with no details, but something about it I do want to share with our listeners and Gypsy. The last, not the other day, not yesterday when we went out, but the time before that, on one of our breaks, Dennis went into how he did the research, how he's done the research on this one cache, and what he knew about it, and how he come to his conclusion was absolutely amazing to me. And there were, not only is his research so extensive and so involved, but so cool in the history that he uncovered along the way. But, the more he told me about it, the more I absolutely believe he explained why history is wrong. And it was just incredible. And there's without a doubt that history's wrong and he's on the right track. And that's why nobody would ever found this. But, some things came together for him in his research that would be almost, I'm trying to think of the term. I apologize.
Legendary. I want to use that word.
Well, legendary, but almost like, you were led, some things, some almost like miracles happened.
They did.
And it's just, it was really exciting to, I don't know what my face was like as you were telling me all that and going into detail. You really kind of overwhelmed me. You were throwing out so many names and so much information, and I wouldn't want you to think I was glazed over with boredom or anything, because I know sometimes I get that stupid look on my face, but it was just it was overwhelming to try to take it in. But I was so impressed with how much research you've done and what you learned from that research, and that you were able to rattle off all these different names and dates and what was happening then. That it was really neat. I'll tell you, I was really impressed, and it really. Then you went into, you and I starting to look for some and starting off, and you've really kind of opened my eyes to cache hunting in a huge way, and I'm really excited to work on that and research and be a part of that. And I'm really excited. It's definitely something that's kind of changed me,
Well, that's good. And go ahead, Gypsy.
No, I that's something I've always wanted to research more, is caches and things like that. I've got some books that, one I think I tried to share with you once, Mike. And what it is, it has some historical facts in it. You know how that goes. There's always some historical facts sometimes in these stories.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the 3 or 4 different versions of the story that you get.
Yep.
But then the rest comes through, like you said, the hardcore research. And I've got several that, in fact, well, one we did a show on, I think, but it was a part of a cache that I had talked to Mike about, where I grew up in West Texas, and one that is well known, and there's even a historical marker that talks about one of the tales there. But what's so interesting, like what you said, it's amazing how even history and all that can get so twisted, so far from the actual truth. Mm-hmm. And through research, how you can even find out stuff that, you see a historical marker these days. And I hate to say this, but some of the stuff on the historical marker isn't even that factual or that truthful these days. It gives you enough information that, if you really dig deep and stuff, that you'll find out a lot more on your own research.
You know what
Gypsy. Well, let me say this quick. When I set out after any cache, historically or now or whenever, my effort is to disprove it just as much as it is to prove it. Because that very thing you were saying, back in the day, one of the big things that happened at the end of the Western era was all these dime novelists came out, and they took Wyatt Earp is a great example. He became a film critic and or have a kind of a film consultant, and they took things, and everything was designed, whether it's a dime novel or a very early movie, to glorify and elaborate, and a lot of times on the truth of just how amazing this guy was, had a Lone Ranger gun that never ran out of bullets sort of concept, and they do that a lot with the treasure. Some of it's intentional, some of it is not. Some of it is just glorifying, sensationalizing some kind of treasure or something. So I always try, everything I look at it, I try and disprove it just as much as I do try and prove it. And that's actually stopped me a lot of times for some rather well-known treasures and caches. But it's good to know that, because why chase it if it's not there? Or, if you conclude it's not there. And so it's just learning how to do that too. I give folks a lot of information how to, but at the end of the day, it takes knowing what you're looking at, knowing how to think about it, knowing where to look for information that you just wouldn't think was available. and they're still out there again. I make that point again because I think that the second cache I found was intentional. The first one was an accident. The second one was on the same property, and it was literally what Charlie Garrett years ago. In fact, he was the one that in conversation turned me on to the bent over nail that got clipped and for the barbed wire or wire to be undone. And I found the flat post for the second one, and it was very intentional. But I never would have found that had I not found the first one. And the first one made me think, there could be a second one there. And it was because of trying to think and his advice that put me on that path to where I did find it. And
I remember. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you though.
No,
I remember reading one of his books many, many years ago, and it having that. And one of them I think was how to find caches, and that was one of the tips that Charlie had put in there about the bent nail and the fence, those old posts and stuff. And that it's amazing. I mean, and you found 2 caches on the same property, and that's a lot of that is very true. You hear about, have you ever heard, I'm sure this is probably in your research and stuff, a lot of times you'll hear about one cache. Well, sometimes they wouldn't bury it all in one place. They would make many caches and spread them around.
One of the place that I found the 2 at produced 3 more caches after I was done.
Yep.
And that illustrates your point really well. The biggest one there was a little over $700 face value, but both caches that I found were pre-1900. The second cache I'm talking about was $323.81. Not a lot of money. Back then it was, but you have to think they were all pre-1900. There were 2 gold, $20 gold pieces in that cache, and there were seeded halves, there were silver dollars, there was a lot of what we would consider to be quality finds now. Amplified by the numismatic value, it's added up to a substantial sum. And what's cool is along the way, we think in terms of caches, in terms of cash money, but along the way, that particular one where I undid the wire, the post was down, but the wire itself was some really old barbed wire. And I ended up with about probably 40 feet of it, but that was the kind of barbed wire, and it's a treasure, if you will, that's sold by the foot back then. And it was an expensive barbed wire. It was a very rare one. And so there's other things you find along the way besides just coin treasures or caches. You may also find bottles along the way. There's lots of different things.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. That's a great point. It's kind of getting off the cache stuff, but there are so many different treasures to be found. There's glass insulators that can go into the thousands and thousands of dollars. Same with bottles. There's gems. There's so many different things to keep an eye out for. But I want to stick with the caches for a second. One of the things, Gypsy, that I liked so much is the one that he is after. It is known a little bit. I don't know how big it is, but it is known. But his research, when he went into detail of how he's ended up where he's ended up, I just thought I would bet any amount of money nobody else has ever put that together if they have looked for it, because the amount of research he's put into that. But what I love about, I remember the days of Lost Treasure, and every single month there was a new article about some treasure, and half the time it was the same story I read 6 months ago. It was just a different era,
different version.
Different. It wasn't the same story, but I almost felt like like
but
it
very
was
similar, yeah.
Yeah, so similar that some of those had to be run together. Some of them were, and what I love about what he's talking about us doing, those aren't treasure stories. His research and his knowledge is, hey, this produced some caches. There should be some caches here. And I love that because I feel like, and maybe this will change someday, I don't have an interest to go chase some big famous treasure that everybody else has done and everybody else is looking for, and we know that over time it's been skewed so much. What he's talking about is raw, and it's in the history books, and you have to imagine that, yeah, it makes 100%, I mean, it makes just absolute sense that there should be caches related to this, absolutely. And I like that because it's probably nobody has ever went and looked for them. It's not a, hey, here's a story for you, listen to this,
And
Go ahead.
and with all that research, another big part of it is persistence. And he's persisting with his research, and he's persisting with all this. He's going to find it. I believe you will find it, Dennis.
And it's funny that you say that, Gypsy, and I'll tell you why. In my life, I won a car years ago, and I knew I was going to win the car. In fact, that's what started me metal detecting, was that I won a car, sold it, had some money left over, and bought my first Garrett. But I won a contest as well in 1987, and I knew I was going to win that one as well. And we get off in a weird subject there. But just as much, and I can't really explain that, but I know that the big one I'm looking for now, I know I'm going to find that. And people say, well, how can you know? And I simply just know. And we won't even talk tonight because I know we won't get that far in it. But there's a ghost involved in this big one. And it was verified by someone that had no knowledge of there being a possibility of a ghost. And I get into that stuff with another time, another story. But it amazes
that sounds like
me.
a good one.
Well, it really is. Mike knows some of it, and the reason I shared what I did, Mike, was because I wanted to illustrate to you the big one that I'm looking for right now is in the history books, and what threw everybody off was the way the guy died, and they got all focused on that. And so when that occurred, everything else is lost to history except through the family, and they're the ones that I hooked up with initially. And they were about 8.5 miles off of where I believe it to be. And everything I know about caches screams to me that I'm spot on perfect. And there's a couple other things that I can't talk about it. But my point is that this stuff, when your persistence is a really good point, that particular one I've been doing for a little over 4 years now, consistently working it as it revealed itself. But through the years, and I've said this on this podcast before, I've got those little 3-ring binder notebooks with the fold over tabs on every county in Texas. And when I go somewhere or I find out a story, it gets added into that book or that notebook, because you simply never know when that's going to become an important aspect of the future learning about a story. And boy, I'd encourage everybody, when I die and my son gets my stuff and throws all my crap away, he won't know what he's throwing away, even though I've told him. But my point is that the stories that are in those books, that's actually what led in large part to me writing the 2,700 historical sites across Texas. And Dorian steered me the other day, I don't know, 3 weeks ago, Mike, or so. He said, break it down. And after Amazon and I got into it a little bit, that's what I'm doing right now. But there's so many particles of stories out there. And it just takes cataloging them, and that persistence pays off. And sometimes it might be 10 or 15 years, but it's there, and it's a great, great hobby that occasionally you find a treasure, And I think that in my case, I have gotten far more out of this hobby than I ever would have thought of. And when I bought that first detector after I sold the car that I won, and I remember I wanted to have something that would remind me of that car in the contest I won. And what are those, the Nissan 380 400ZX that they have? It was the 1974 version of that car. But anyway,
wow.
that's what got me in metal detecting. And I got to say that it lasted far longer than that car would have. And I've had nothing but it's been a great ride for me. And that's available to anybody out there that puts in the learning time and the going out and understanding it's not always going to be great days. And man, I wouldn't give up my metal detector for anything. It's just been great for me.
Right. Well, Dennis, you should be writing a book, I think. Don't you think?
Well, the one book of the 2,700 historical sites that's actually a pretty good one in terms of, but it's just not available right now. It's being rewritten courtesy of Amazon, but that's another story in itself. Yeah,
okay.
But the things are out there, and it just takes what Mike has been talking about. I know you're good at doing this too, and you just learn and talk to the right people. You mentioned East Texas earlier. There's a lot of caches out there from the bootlegging days in East Texas.
Oh yeah,
there's a lot of bunches of them, and some of those they were several thousands of dollars, and even the steels themselves are worth money because a lot of them back then were copper, and they're just historical relics,
True. And Bonnie and Clyde were right through there. We're near where my parents live.
Wow. What an amazing story that is.
Right.
Have you hunted where Bonnie and Clyde were killed over in Louisiana?
No, I haven't.
See, I think that'd be a great place. If any of y'all up there around Louisiana where you'd have to look up where they're killed, so I don't recall. But I'd love to hunt that area because there's lots of bullets that were fired that day, and some of them went to butchers.
Oh man, wouldn't that be neat to find one of those bullets right there?
Sure.
That's a wild.
That'd be a case where
story.
It is, and so much of it is, and those folks, they were legends in their time. A lot of people loved them as well as some that hated them. But I'd love to find some of the Bonnie and Clyde stuff for sure.
Definitely.
Huh. I see, Bob. I wish I'd had that. It was a 240Z, not a 280. But I'd love to have had that. But I had a Ford Cobra too. I wish I had that car back.
I bet.
There you go, Bob.
All right, are
Mike,
we?
Your turn.
Yeah, I'm ready to call tonight if you guys are. We're working on almost 10 o'clock.
Yeah,
and
it's getting late.
I'm about beat up. I'm sitting here too. I sit too long, and it's not good for me. It's not good for me, but
well, it's been fun. Thanks for having me on tonight with you guys. It's been a lot of fun.
Thanks for coming on and sending us off the rails, talking about your butt and stuff. We appreciate that. Here I am trying to behave, Dennis, and here she goes.
Well, Gypsy, we're going to have you up to those locations I told you about, and that's one you could probably write an article on, if nothing else. So, and a video or two. So we're going to have a ball doing that. You guys out there in the ether here, we all just look forward. As we do it, I'd say that we come back on and talk about, because I think one of those is going to be an exceptional trip, personally.
And something before we go, I apologize. I wanted to say, check out Gypsy's videos at Zero Discrimination out on YouTube. Go check out her new electrolysis video if you've ever thought about doing that. It's very easy to do, and it's well worth it. Take some of those iron artifacts and turn them into something you want to display. You can display. I love that. She has some other great videos, and I can about bet money when Garrett says, okay, you can release information, you're going to want to go to Zero Discrimination, because you're going to probably see some really awesome videos with the help of Dennis. And you're probably going to see that new detector finding some cool stuff, or at the very least on some very historical properties. And subscribe to Zero Discrimination and keep an eye out for those videos.
Appreciate it, Mike. Yeah, I'll be testing it out before it goes out on the market, so y'all be sure and hop on over to my YouTube channel. And as soon as Garrett finally releases the info on it, I'll be uploading some videos, and I'm so excited. I'm just excited as I think everybody else. So
yeah, I am too.
I look forward to getting out with you two again and doing some digging soon, hopefully, and ready for this lockdown to be over with. And
me too. I'm excited. I'm excited to get on some of those historic sites. And me, you, and Dennis had a lot of fun, and I look forward to doing it again. He's boy, I don't know. We joke a lot and stuff, Dennis, but I really appreciate it. And I'll tell you, I'm very, very happy that I met Dorian. That Dorian and in turn I've met you, and I've just had so much fun. Consider you a good friend, and I'm gonna go over this week, and we're gonna build him a set of headphones for his dais.
Oh.
Yeah, every time we go out, he complains about his one pair of headphones, and we're gonna hook him up. We're gonna make him a good pair of headphones. So I'm looking forward to that. I haven't even asked Steph. I did tell her that I was planning on coming over again this week, but let me check with her. It'll probably be, maybe do it. We'll talk about it later, but maybe even tomorrow if you're down. We'll have to see what's going on.
Yeah, I'm good tomorrow. So, but you guys, y'all go check out my YouTube channel as well. Oh, wait a minute, I don't have a YouTube channel. Never mind. So.
That's funny.
But hey, you two
anyway,
were in my videos not too long ago.
I know.
Oh.
And I cherish that. I do. Yeah, that was like winning the car, sort of. So, I really did enjoy it. It was. We're going to do it some more too. And I'm a huge fan, Gypsy. I got to tell you, your videos, and it's just you do a great job. I love your format, and it's just it's great to have someone of your caliber on there, and the way you present your videos. It's exceptional. Mike, you're not so much, brother. Mike has a face for radio.
Yeah, for sure.
And y'all, Mike is like the son I never wanted. So, no, I'm teasing.
I want to. Hold on. I got to tell you something really funny. I don't know if you guys caught it earlier, but when I was talking about doing research and not having time, I said, I've got Randy, I got the baby, and Steph ever since then is blowing up my phone. She said, you just said you have Randy and the baby. And then there's some bad words I can't repeat. And I said, LOL, it was just a slip up. And she said, a slip up like you didn't mean to mention your other family. So now there's this whole big long conversation where she's talking about my other baby and my other family. So I got in trouble. And I just told her I changed the password on something. I think something got hacked. And I texted her that. And she said, are you sure it's not I Have a Secret Baby 2020? Yeah, she's giving me a rough way to go, like I've got another family. So call and check on me tomorrow, guys, or later tonight. Make sure she didn't murder me and stuff. But, all right, good night, everybody. Yep.
Night, you guys. Night, everybody out there.
Good night, everybody. Thanks for tuning in, and
Good
catch
night,
us
all.
next Tuesday. Next Tuesday is part 2 of Jesse James. So hope you enjoy it. Good night, everybody.
Night.